She has one share.
Thanks.
And the second invoice is for number CPM 119-02, dated August 31st, 2022, for $4,388. Oh.
That's just a reminder.
Thank you.
It's on.
For $4,388.50. The third invoice is invoice number CPM 119-103 for dated September 30th, 2022 for $4,630. And the fourth invoice is CPM 119-04 dated October 31st, 2022 for $7,654. And the fifth invoice is dated November 30th, 2022 for $6,348. That's CPM 119-05. And then the sixth invoice is dated December 31st, 2022, CPM 119-06 for $7,935.50. So the total of those invoices is $33,092. The math is correct.
Do you have the advertisement up there? Not how that is.
Don't have the advertisement?
There's
Oh,
an
oh,
invoice
yes,
for
right.
advertising.
Well, these are our invoices, and
Okay.
this one
That's old.
this one is through, this is a separate invoice, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe if we have a vote on our invoice, then I'll present that.
Okay.
that, yeah.
I have a question.
Why haven't the invoices been paid? These are pretty old invoices. I'm new to the, like, this is my first day on the committee.
Well, this is only the third meeting, so there was only one other meeting, and that was the last meeting, and I think we were just kind of getting things
Okay.
up to date.
And is the committee going to follow the same process for paying invoices as the other building projects? Meaning, like, there's gonna be a cover sheet, an invoice approval form that everyone on the committee signs on? I think the town accountant wants that.
He wants everyone on this committee to sign that,
Yes.
not just the chair.
No, everyone, and even the Compass, oh, not Compass, the OPM and the architect, designer. And then also, and it just worked in the past, we had a good process for the high school and the library. Is there like a subcommittee to, like, review the invoices before they come here? From this committee?
Sorry, Dan.
Okay.
You said that, I'm sorry.
We set that up previously when we got into construction
Oh, okay.
to review change orders, things like that.
Okay.
As far as the sign-up sheet, I can get that template to you, Christine.
I think Christine might already have it, I think,
Yeah, the school has one.
yeah.
Oh, you have one, okay.
Okay, I just didn't
Okay.
realize that the whole committee had to sign it. It was my
Yeah.
understanding that just the chair or vice chair.
The people that are on this committee, yeah, they all sign it. That's the practice that we had in the past, and the town accountant likes that.
Okay.
And now that, I think as I recall, so we would do what I just did, and then you'd vote it, and then we'd pass it around. And while the rest of the business is going on, people would sign it.
Okay, so I need to make that cover sheet before, I should have had a cover sheet tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or we should have told you to put one on it.
Yeah.
Is there something we can do
Remember that
for
from the
tonight
last
to
one.
make tonight work?
Honestly, I don't want to
No, I
speak
know,
for the
yeah,
town
I know.
accountant, but, I mean, what we could do, if everybody's here, a template could be created, and we could,
You could initial, this package has all the invoices, and you guys could all sign it.
yeah, and then,
That's a good idea, because then we'll have to wait another month.
right,
But going forward, we have a template that I can use. I
Right.
just wasn't aware that that could come before, so.
okay,
All right, makes sense, though.
all right.
So if you could vote them, and then we have one other invoice after that.
I'll make a motion to accept the invoices that were presented here tonight.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, any
Aye.
discussion?
Are we going to see what the invoices have on them first, before we vote?
Well, this one, right,
We can,
I'm not exactly sure, yeah.
you want to
I'm
pass?
sure this is more than sufficient information for everybody else, and these are small amounts, but it's always nice to.
Do we want to maybe table it, pass it around, do some other business, and then vote later?
That's not a bad idea, actually. But, Tim, the total that you just gave us doesn't match the total on the second page of this.
I gave my one version.
Does that one include the ad? 'Cause that would be-
It did, but even if you take that out, it still doesn't, the totals don't add up. It's not off by much, but they don't add up, I don't think. You might want to check my math.
Tom, I can always go out and make a few copies of them.
Sure, you want to.
Why don't I do that?
No, I should have to Tom.
You gave it
The chair has it. I just pick, is it, they're not the same?
Are you saying this total
Yes.
math doesn't work on it?
Well,
I'm sorry.
maybe it's my math.
That
I'll
was
be
my
really
copy,
fast.
So I don't know if something changed since I received that.
Well, the numbers in the column seem to match, but the total doesn't.
I'd have to do the math. I think it's a spreadsheet. Do you want me to, I'll do that, why don't we, I'll add that up just to get that, make sure that is accurate. And then maybe we could approve this, the last invoice, which is the,
Yeah, Chris,
which is for the ad for, I believe this is for the ad for the accountant, right? Or, I mean, for the architect selection.
Yes, the big, yeah.
Right. So this one is, just for the record, this one, which is in that package, is from Local IQ New England, which is the charge to publish the ad for the request for designer services, and this one is for $562.77. Invoice number 4857827. So I'll check that math, Joe, and then we can continue.
Yeah, it could be my math, or it could be the math on the
Might be one.
table.
That's right.
So, since we have a motion and a second, if we're going to table, I'll withdraw the second.
Say again, I'm sorry.
We have a motion and a second, so I'll withdraw the second.
Okay.
Table till everybody has a
So I
chance to
just have a
review it.
question. So
Yeah.
going forward, when you send this package, will you be sending it to the whole committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll do electronic.
Yeah, that's why
Does it include the five,
I thought if the committee was on, there might be a law.
so I'll follow the Stoughton High School process. We'll do electronic to the entire committee, we'll do the minutes to the entire committee, the agenda to the entire committee, and then what I'll do is I'll print up 3 copies of the VIP, the vendor invoice package, similar to what we did before, Fran. One, I think, goes right to Bill Rowe. The others are filed within, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and if I get it ahead of time, I can have that cover sheet on top, so then once we vote the invoices, everyone here that's present can sign it.
2-7.
I used to draft them, so if I
Oh,
could,
fine, that's perfect.
I could draft it, and then you can see it, and if I'm missing something that the town has, you can add on to it, and then I can get that information back from
Sounds
you.
great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
This is accurate, yep, we're good. So, we're going to, the second to the motion's been withdrawn, and we'll table this issue until everybody's had a chance to take a look at the invoices. And we'll pick it up at the end of the meeting.
Does anyone want another copy to pass around?
Diane's making copies right now.
She is, oh.
And what would be sufficient for tonight's approval? Everybody signing the covers, or is that not sure?
That, I think that will be okay, and then if Bill Rowe wants that cover sheet, you guys can work with Dom and create a cover sheet, and everybody who's here, during COVID, what I used to do when I paid the invoices for the library, I just scanned them, and then people signed, and so instead of one sheet, I actually had like maybe 13 sheets.
Well, during
but-
COVID, we'd be signing them electronically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, or I could do, if you want to just blank tape, print and sign type of
It's
thing.
acceptable, I'm just,
Yeah, if it's, I don't want to speak for Bill Rowe, but I think it would be okay.
You could print and
Yeah, and just, maybe at the top, today's date, and just approval of the invoices in the vendor package.
for today.
Okay?
So Joe, do you want to go to feasibility update?
Okay, we good on this? Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the feasibility study update next on the agenda. And for that, I'll turn it over to Vertex and DRA.
Okay. Tim, do you
Well,
want to?
I'll just, this is the same schedule that people who were here last meeting saw, which essentially indicates our work plan, in summary for the project. So really, we'll probably just show this or some version of this as every meeting, just to remind people of the critical deadlines. So the big thing that we're working on now is getting towards submission of a preliminary design program, which is going to be submitted,
We said April 4th.
April
I think it's
4th. Yeah, April 4th.
But
Yeah.
we need to submit a draft in March. We're planning on having a draft in March available. That's the program that has, which you'll hear more about tonight, is the existing conditions report, the ed plan development and the ed plan, and
Facilities assessment.
Right, the facilities
Assessment.
existing conditions, and then also the long list of sort of the sites that we're looking at. So that's in that PDP, which is scheduled for April. We're heading toward basically the preferred schematic, which is the decision on what option we're going to carry forward with by the end of May and into June for that submission. So we'll talk more about this as we get through the presentation, but we're starting sort of the process of robust community engagement to talk about that. I think that we are also beginning the process of looking at the potential of what consolidation and redistricting might mean. So this is all starting that process, so essentially we're starting that kickoff. So there's a lot more that's happening within the feasibility presentation that Cal will go into, but that's kind of where we stand. That's all I really had on that slide. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, and we, the team, the design team, and the OPM and the Stoughton District will present the PDP to you a week before your meeting in March, so you have a chance to review it. Get that to you.
Yeah, I think we're going to get to that in the presentation. So.
If there's any questions on this? Carl, you want to?
Sure. So as Tim mentioned, one of the key parts of this first submission to the MSBA is the assessment of existing conditions, physical conditions, but also educational conditions too. But on the physical side of things, the facility side, our team has, most of our team has already been through the building and is starting to write up their reports and comments. And a few more meetings are coming up to sort of close out the site visits necessary to make that report. We're documenting things both with photographs and with updating the floor plans and drawings and so forth, just to have kind of record documents in that regard. I don't think there are many surprises there. We've been through the building before. We know it's in need of a lot of things. We'll summarize this in the future, but a couple photographs there. Again, just sometimes when you see the building every day, you kind of look past things. It's like your own house, but when you stop to look carefully, clearly the building envelope is nowhere near, current day standards in terms of insulation and weatherproof and so forth. And likewise, the infrastructure, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems are also, the polite term is beyond their useful life. And we will build on this information in a piece of information called the base repair, which will quantify both qualitatively and quantitatively what's needed to bring the building up to today's standards, not just code, but standards. And we'll put a price tag on that, too, eventually. And we'll think about, not just what doesn't meet code today, but what systems might die in the next 5 to 10 years and need capital improvement money to address. And that becomes a useful piece of information, both for your budgeting, but moreover for comparative purposes. When we start thinking about other options and we say, here's what a new school could cost, or here's what a full-blown renovation addition would cost, we can compare it against that baseline of just doing the base repair, which doesn't change things educationally. It doesn't rework the classrooms really or reconfigure the building. It just fixes things that are broken or brings them up to code. It's a good baseline, and citizens, taxpayers are often always looking for that kind of information. So that's underway as one of the key pieces of the facilities. And one of the things we like to do, and we will share, this is kind of getting into the community meetings too, but we will offer tours at the community meeting when it's in person, so people, if they want, can see it in person, but we'll also have good photographs, documentation, and this is always a kind of strong way of getting the message across, of showing what you have and what it could be by showing just comparable new elementary schools. Classrooms, cafeterias, gyms, auditoria, cafetoriums, those sorts of spaces. So this is just a sample, but of what we can do. And the same for the exterior of the building. I mean, although it's hard to appreciate a well-insulated building just from a photograph, but we can sort of compare and contrast what's there and what could be. The other part of the feasibility study that's underway, as many of you know, is the development of the educational plan, and as part of that are these sets of visioning sessions that are underway. You can see the first one has happened. It was last week, led by our educational consultant, David Stephen, and well attended by, I think we had over 30 participants, right, Jake? 34 or something, I think, 40, yeah. It was focused on sort of high-level educational concepts and principles to try to get the feel for what the town is favoring in that regard, looking at some best practices in current educational thinking and which of those are most applicable to a new elementary project here. And again, we do this without preconception as to whether it's going to be a new school, whether it's going to be an additional renovation. We're kind of stepping back and saying just abstractly, from an educational point of view, how does teaching and learning want to happen here at South Elementary and moreover at all elementaries, frankly, in Stoughton. The next one you can see is scheduled next week. I think that's Wednesday night, is it?
The 17th.
Is it Thursday?
It's Thursday.
Thursday night, I'm sorry, the 19th, which has a slightly different focus, more specifically getting into facilities.
It's Tuesday
It's
the
Tuesday.
17th.
It's Tuesday. The 19th is the faculty
Is the
meeting.
faculty meeting.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Sorry about
we
that.
We have it in the sheet correctly. It's
Okay.
not on the slide correctly.
I'm sorry about that.
February
Yeah, I
2nd,
thought so.
correct.
Tuesday, the 17th, right. And again, it's the same group of people for the most part. Hopefully, most everyone can make it again. It's good to have sort of consistency there. And then third one following a couple weeks later focuses more specifically kind of planning. We'll get into actually diagramming configurations of buildings and what components want to be adjacent to each other and so forth. Different ways of organizing the program elements. So that's underway, and that will feed into the educational plan. That will be part of the preliminary design focus. And then just to put on your calendars again, the community meetings coming up. The first one is a Saturday, the 21st, is in person at the school. The second one is the 24th. That would be virtual in the evening for those people that can't make the in-person one. And then, as we say, we'll be assisting on helping Jake and Katie work on the educational plan there. We've gotten you a couple templates, right? You've seen other communities and so forth. So I think that's it on the educational side of things as to where this is headed. I think we wanted to spend a moment just in terms of talking about what we want to see happen at the community meetings. We will, along with Vertex, help facilitate the meeting, but we certainly want it to be, a consensus of what you all want to see there and what we want to get out of it. This is a draft agenda for that. And again, the one that's, we would run them similarly. The one that's in person clearly has the opportunity to do tours afterwards, and we would sort of physically do breakout sessions so that we'd go to different corners of the cafeteria and at tables and assemble in groups of 5, 6, 7 people around a table. We can do the same virtually on Zoom with 6 or 8 people in so-called breakout rooms as well. But we'll have a slightly different strategy of how to share the photographs as a tour of the building. We're talking with Jeff Pickett that we may even get a video by then that we could show people of touring the building. That's somewhat edited and kind of concise and gets the points across.
Just before we leave that, so we do want to spend a second just to talk about the community forum. So this is, we obviously meet with DRA and talk about what we've seen work best in other projects, in other communities. And we're involved in two communities that are looking at multiple district configurations. And so this sort of reflects, particularly for a kickoff community forum, essentially the idea that, we don't want to get in, we want people to not get hung up on the MSBA process. I mean, it's important to the timeline, so it needs to be explained, but it's really about why the project is happening. Because some people, as you know, don't really know in town what's happening. Most people aren't at this stage paying that kind of attention. So, and then it also has an element, and that's sort of what.
How we got here and what is.
That's how we got here is kind of that existing conditions and the deficiencies within the school itself. But the what is and what can be is kind of hopefully a way to get people to think about, the differences, not just about the facility conditions, but about how you deliver education in the 21st century and what it looks like. And so there'll be a sort of series of, this is what we have and this is what, new schools, whether new or renovated, have now to deal with a similar kind of use and program. So it's just a way to get people talking about it. And then we would talk about, obviously, the process and timeline in a way that's hopefully free of jargon around, like we talk here, a little more jargon around PDP and PSR and stuff, that we found that has pretty much, people don't understand what all that means. And then we also want to talk about the decision-making process, and particularly how it will be a transparent process. It will, as much as possible, be objective in terms of looking at the different factors that we will review with the district and the working group ahead of time to make sure they're comfortable with what we're going to talk about. And then also, of course, critically is all the opportunities for community engagement and where they'll be, how people can access information about the project, what they should pay attention to in terms of information being pushed out to them. And then, like we said, that we haven't really finalized the timing of all of it yet, but we're expecting the presentation to be no more than a half an hour. It would be, I think, is kind of the goal. And then the breakout sessions, which We have talked about 3 kinds of, where people could go if they're interested in, including consolidation and redistricting, would be where we expect to get additional feedback and a readout from and record the sentiments of what people are saying. So the idea of the community forum is, I think, you know, it's a Saturday morning, or it's a Thursday night, or when we have it, or it's a Saturday afternoon and a
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. But in any case, people have limited time, so we're not looking to make it a long journey, you know, like, it's really hopefully going to be an hour and a half, I guess, probably an hour and a half, my guess is, especially if the tours are involved. So that's sort of what the process is around the community forum. And, you know, we've done before DRA, and we and many of you in this room have done a similar kinds of forum when we did the high school in the cafeteria there, where that breakout works very well to kind of get people engaged, whoever attends.
Yeah, our goal is always to get what we'd say is meaningful input. We're not there to sell a project yet. That maybe a year from now, when we know what we're doing and we know what it costs, and that's a different kind of meeting. This kind of meeting is something we're really looking for feedback. What's important to each and every person there. So we will distribute ourselves at the various breakout sessions, try to facilitate conversation, not necessarily lead it, be available to answer questions, but try to get people involved and tell us their thoughts. We'd appreciate your thoughts now too on those breakout sessions. Sometimes we can have kind of a free-ranging conversation. We just say, we'll just have 5 or 6 different groups depending on how many people are there, and just have an open agenda. Say, tell us what's important to you or what's on your mind. Or we could have more directed kind of sessions where at this table they're talking about educational visions. Another table they might be talking about facilities. Another table might be talking about site planning or site selection. They could be topical, in other words. And the breakout sessions go on for 20 minutes or so. And then we all come back together just for a brief recap. So if you want to find out what that other table was talking about, each table can give a 2-minute summary so that people don't feel left out or missing something. But do you have thoughts on topics for the breakout sessions, or should we just have more general kind of input from the various people there? Anyone have a feel for that?
If I could speak real quickly, I think the first time we went through this in the high school project, it was, hopes and dreams kind of conversation. What do you want to see in the new school? Carl may not have referred to it, but this is the first of community forums. We had multiple community forums. We also had outreach too. So we build upon the first one and into the second one and on as we get closer and closer to the ideal, future elementary school. So.
I guess I'd like to add, I like the idea of topics, although without knowing how big the group's going to be or what their interests are. I think sometimes just having that sheet that lists the topics so that people have something to drive them
Some
at the
prompts,
table.
yeah.
The prompts, if you will, yeah. So I think it might work better with an elementary crowd.
Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And hopes and dreams can be, to add to that, hopes and dreams can be one of the tables, but I think some people coming to the meeting might have an affinity for facilities. They might have an affinity for the educational planning. They may be interested in a particular area.
Yeah.
And then those that aren't necessarily, they can go to a table to have more of a general conversation, but people could pick and choose,
And we can be somewhat nimble on our feet too and see, after the 20-minute or so presentation of the process, if there were some questions that are directed, if everyone's interested in redistricting, for instance, we may, think a little differently about what the breakout sessions are about. So we can kind of play it by ear in that sense too.
And I do think it's important, not to interrupt, but I do think it's important that that is part of that discussion in your presentation. People need to understand all the options that we're expected to promote to the MSBA, but now's the time. We need to help people understand what all the options are and how the redistricting works within that.
Okay.
Also?
And also, I know a save the date went out for the holidays, but I don't know, whenever advertising can be done at this local level, either getting it out in school packets, but obviously the more people we get attending, the better. Would be great.
Also, the last item on that list, I don't know, Joyce, were you planning on being there Saturday to lead a tour?
Sure.
You feel capable?
I feel capable.
Great,
I've
okay.
been studying the last page.
And I don't know, Jake, if your custodian is going to be on board for that day on a Saturday to let us into the building, or if
Well,
we need to, or?
Yeah, we'll do a permit, and I have keys to get in the building, so.
Okay.
But if you want them to, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And code, we're good.
all right,
The
great,
permit.
thanks, thanks.
You should have an attorney in there.
Yeah,
Just in, yeah.
right.
Just to close that, Jake and Katie, you've gotten the save the date, right? We sent,
I'm sorry, what?
Not to say the date. I know Jeff Chickett was facilitating,
Oh.
because it wasn't just to our community.
Okay.
Yeah.
You put it out on Facebook.
Yeah.
okay, all right.
But
So,
we will put it out again to our families through our Friday updates.
so,
So
Great.
I think we were waiting for that to go out on social media before each principal pushed it out, but we'll start pushing it out in our weekly updates.
and I'll follow up next week with posting at Town Hall and posting at the library. Any other locations I should post?
It is on social media already.
Okay, that's good. The voice of Courtney's coming through.
I'm thinking that maybe the sign at the high school might be a good way to advertise this as well.
Where was that? I'm sorry.
The sign at the high school, the electronic sign.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Which would be a great way.
I can ask Julie.
One other thing, and especially for the other elementary schools, I would want to say that maybe in the invitation might say there might be a discussion on redistricting, because I think you'll get a lot of people will come for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the other locations to maybe publicize is like the town crier that gets pushed out, and also through the town moderator to the town meeting representatives, just as a larger body, because I believe everyone in the community is invited, no matter if you have a school-aged
Right.
child or not.
Definitely.
So it's really open to anybody who wants to attend, ask questions, and be a part of the conversation.
And some of our like community partners as well, I can reach out to like our Stoughton Extended Day, the YMCA, because we push out a lot of kids end up there at the end of the day, and there's parents and pick up, so we can.
I can always go over there too and post a hard copy at the front.
Yeah.
I've been there a couple of times, yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the next down. One of the other pieces that goes into this first submission is a preliminary list of options. Not that we're necessarily evaluating them in detail at this point, but we're just developing some options. Let's call it the long list. And then thinking about shortening it to the next phase, we may winnow it down to 3 or 4 that have a little more in-depth. And we talked about last time about, a number of sites in town that we have identified, many of these that were left over sort of from the site selection process for the high school. And already we've started to look at this list and saying, actually the majority of them don't really make sense or aren't really feasible for the South School project. And just to confirm with this group too, even though we've talked about possible consolidation with the Wilkins, we're still thinking of the geographic location as being the south part of town and the South School district. So, that eliminates several parcels that are really beyond that geographic location there. So, and TJ did ask us to add one there, number 12, which is up Park Street, kind of at the fork in the road there at Park Street and Prospect Street, to look at that parcel where the proposed fire station is going, I guess, as well. And again, a quick look there shows it's fairly small and it's a lot of wetlands. So I think that one will be dismissed pretty quickly as well. But again, we wanted to put on the list to say we've looked at it. And we'll have a more detailed breakdown of the pluses and minuses of each of these at our next session. But that's sort of the long list right now.
And I think it seems to be likely that we're going to be moving forward on the sort of 2 or 3 that I think people realize, just given what,
Mhm.
what the initial evaluation is around either size, location, buildable area.
Right, it really looks like the, obviously the South School
Itself.
parcel itself, the adjacent playing field, and the Fano Drive properties behind it are, likely targets for further study, and perhaps the golf course, just because it is town-owned, it's relatively in that part of town, but it has issues. But it's worth studying before we were to dismiss it.
And just to explain, the MSBA requires us to look at these as part of the exercise, so some you say automatically don't make sense, but we still have to review it.
Mhm. Okay. And then if you've got the smaller version, although that's hard to read too, I guess, but you can see all the opportunities there are going to be for public outreach. We just wanted to share this with everyone, and we appreciate that the school department itself, with Jeff Pickett, is helping manage some of this, particularly ones that are social media and so forth. And we'll, keep an eye on this as we move forward, and certainly try to take advantage of as many different forms of communication as we can to get the word out there. And we may hear more things at the community meeting of people saying, why don't you use this, or why don't you post it here, or that sort of thing. So.
If Jeff's already set up Facebook, we got in the previous project a lot of input from the community, questions that came up through Facebook. It was, very helpful, Some of us divvied it up, there were certain things that were more town of Stoughton had to answer, the district had to answer, or the architect and the OPM had to answer. So it's, with Jeff's help, it's already starting to happen, so.
Are you archiving those questions? Do you have, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. We'll keep track of that, Dr. Rabb, as we go along. And this continues all the way through the project into construction. We did that through Stoughton, and we had numerous questions came up throughout the entire project. Why are you doing it this way? Things like that. So.
And then I think we have a sample. Yeah. So here's some of those websites and some of the information that's already available. You can see in the numerous formats there. As Courtney mentioned, I think, the community meeting is already posted on Facebook. And then one of the things we can do is with QR codes too, to have connection to further information when we are in front of people or on websites, or as a link there. So,
Which is active, by the way. That
Yeah.
QR code's working right now.
to connect to
And that
the
takes you right to the Facebook.
to the project website page, actually, yeah, from Facebook to the project website page. So, I don't know if there's anything else in that regard, thoughts people have. We certainly appreciate, for instance, tonight that the cable TV is filming these meetings, recording them at least. That's always useful too for people who might miss a meeting or say, I didn't know about this project. We can say, well, you can go back to look at the previous meetings on the cable's website.
And as we get further down the road too, we do a lot of community outreach to Stoughton community groups that are out there. I know that I met with people at the YMCA, people at the church, different churches here. I presented at the Temple once, Chamber of Commerce, the few Portuguese clubs that are here. So we get out there. Once we get further down, we have something, a product to show. So.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we had this evening. I don't know, on the agenda, we might have had new business, Joe, I
Well, we
think.
have the one thing on the additional funding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, next item, excuse me, next item on the agenda is the anticipated request for additional funding. I'm not sure where that stands at this point in time. I know last meeting we discussed it. We discussed a couple of different numbers, and we discussed perhaps putting a placeholder in for the warrant. I think the warrant closes in very shortly. So this is something I think needs to get done if it's going to happen.
I think, so in the minutes from the last meeting, we can certainly go over them again, but I did a pretty detailed discussion about that at the last meeting, about the range of numbers. Our recommendation that we suggest is, you see the high end of that's 220. Because we certainly don't want to go back again and have that contingency, and we don't spend the money that doesn't need to be spent. We would recommend that the additional appropriation is 250. That makes the number $1 million, which is pretty much on the low end of where other appropriations are at. The 750 is obviously quite low, but the $1 million is pretty low. So, but that allows us some flexibility in case certain things come up. And obviously, as I said, if it doesn't come up, then the money would be spent. So I think the way I talked to TJ is that this committee, it would be helpful for this committee, I believe this article would be sponsored by this committee, the request. So it would be good if we could get a vote, since the warrant is being prepared, I think.
Just a point of information, the warrant opens on January 17th and closes on February 7th, I believe.
I'm sorry, when did you say it opened? 17th?
17th, January 17th, and I believe it closes on February 7th.
So I don't know if somebody wants to make a motion to support the recommendation of that warrant.
Would you mind my hearing's not that great, so I apologize, but would you just repeat how much this request would be for?
The request would be for, we're recommending $250,000.
$250.
And the breakdown is in your meeting minutes.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, so I'll make the motion that we insert a warrant article, or request the select board insert a warrant article to provide or appropriate $250,000 for the purposes laid out in the prior minutes for additional funding for the South Elementary School Building Committee, and that the funding source, I guess that will be decided at a later date. That's my motion.
So we have a motion, do we have a second? We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I guess we can take a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
We have
I'm going to abstain too.
2 abstentions.
What was the second abstention? I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
They want to know why you're abstaining.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm sorry.
So I guess the motion passed.
TJ's gonna work on that. It was
Yeah.
the manager, I believe, or
So the next item is any new business? Any future agenda items or?
And the approval of the warrant. The table.
Oh, right. Sorry. Do we want to do that first? Approval of invoices?
this is that sheet.
Yeah, everybody signed off on it, I guess, so I guess we'll reintroduce. Do we have a motion to approve Vertex's invoices?
So made.
I'll
Second.
second.
No, please.
It's the whole vendor, it is mostly our invoice, but there is also that.
Plus the ad.
Do you want a second?
No,
Steve?
all yours.
I'll second
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
it.
Joyce?
Yeah, I have
No,
one
Diane.
question.
You have a question?
Yeah, a minor question. This is really just more because I'm interested in you know, the accounting here. But the on the first invoice, we have a starting balance for the feasibility and schematic design of $200,000, and every invoice after that, the amount changes to $200,407. And I'm not really sure where that $407 comes from. I do notice that on the last page here, we have a reconciliation compass to Veritech that includes $407, but I wasn't sure if that's where that was. It's such a small amount that it's not significant, but I'm just kind of curious as to what the where that $407 is coming from.
I don't know. My guess is that that's the actual contract value, that 200,407, just because it's so precise. And this first invoice maybe, I don't know what happened there. I think it's a misprint on that first invoice.
Okay, because this would be money that had been appropriated by town meeting, if I'm not mistaken, so I'd be surprised if it wasn't more or less a round number. So I just want to make sure that you know, we have.
Well, this is a portion of it. This is the contract value.
Got it.
Which was negotiated with the committee.
Okay.
And I didn't bring it with me. I don't have access to it. That would be the quickest way. But I'm thinking that 200's for whatever reason, is a misprint.
Yeah, as I mentioned, it's not significant. It's not going to change my vote, but I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It shouldn't be like that, to be honest.
Maybe you could clarify that, Tim, and
I will, yeah.
let the meeting, the committee know.
I'll get time and pull it up to you.
Any more discussion? So we have a motion and a second. Put it to a vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Unanimous. Thank you, folks. All right, now we can talk about new business, if there is any. Do we have any future addenda items or issues or discussions that need to take place? Okay. So the next item is the next meeting. Did we have one scheduled?
Scheduled for the second Wednesday of every month, so.
Second Wednesday, but they're not taking it. They're right this Friday. So we're talking February 8th? February 8th?
Yeah,
7 o'clock here?
Yeah.
So,
Is Eileen going to be sending out the meeting invites? I'm going to take care of it. I'll talk to them about it. I'll start taking care of it.
we don't need a vote on that, do we? No. Okay, that finishes out the agenda. The last item is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Second. We have a motion, we have a second. All in any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.